Good morning. On this first day of the National Voter Registration Weekend that the Independent Electoral Commission had announced. Throughout this weekend, there will be a full-out effort to make sure that every South African citizen who is eligible to vote will register so that they can participate in the upcoming national and provincial elections of 2024. The African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance, which is a relatively recently registered political party, fully supports this effort to make sure that every voter in South Africa will be able to vote. We have registered as a political party because we are deeply concerned about the disaster that has befallen our beloved country. Our economy is collapsing. We've got the highest unemployment rates in the world. The statistics about gender-based violence and about the number of people who die on a daily basis in our country are most disconcerting. In fact, they are the highest in the world. Evidently, this situation cannot be allowed to continue. And the reason why we are in this horrible mess is because of the failed African National Congress government. A government which has made many promises to our people but has failed to deliver on almost all of them. A government which continues to say that it stands for the national liberation of South Africa, but has sold out to white monopoly capitalism and to imperialism. A government that continues to implement new liberal economic policies, although they have failed dismally throughout the world, and has led to this economic disaster that South Africans are now suffering on a daily basis. Our youth do not see a future. Even when they do manage under the most difficult of circumstances to get an education, they cannot get employment. Our young women, the mothers of our nation, are scared to walk in the streets of our country. They are being raped and abused. And the South African Police Service on a daily basis fails dismally to address the high levels of crime, the terribly high levels of gender-based violence, and is in fact a corrupt institution in itself. So South Africans are the victims, the long-suffering victims of this disaster. And certainly it has to come to an end. ARETA supports the call for every South African to register to vote because we are firmly of the opinion that the future that you want to see can come about if you are prepared as a nation to take the responsibility, if you are prepared to be the change that you want to see. And the real and proper instrument in a democracy to bring that fundamental change about is through democratic elections. Therefore, it is the sacred duty of every South African who today is suffering under this failed government, under this government that has reached the status of turning our country into a banana republic, to register to vote the African National Congress firmly and clearly out of power, and to bring in return a democratically elected progressive left government that is committed to the fundamental transformation of our economy, making sure that the land that our people lost because of the way in which the colonists stole the land from the indigenous South Africans will be returned to them. That very fundamental and centrally important instrument for development and for economic direction in our country, the South African Reserve Bank, will be nationalized and will be in the hands of the people through its ownership by government. That the state bank will be established. These are the critical issues that truly the elections of 2024 should be all about. The African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance is committed to provide a clear and very, very practical alternative to the disastrous government of the African National Congress. As we started as a political party, in our first statement on our formation on the 23rd of February of this year, we said that we will be driven by the ideology of radical economic transformation. And that is why in our motivation and our call on the people of South Africa to register over this National Voter Registration Weekend, our posters say, register to vote, African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance, for RET, for radical economic transformation. We do not come with mealy-mouthed words. We not present some kind of marshmallow amorphous cloud of what our policy positions are. We do not simply say to you, the choice is yours. Of course the choice is yours. But we have a responsibility as a concerned political party, committed to a clear left progressive agenda, to provide you with the choice, to provide you with an alternative from the disaster that our country finds itself in at the moment. And that is why we want it to be absolutely clear that our call to you is to vote for ARETA once you've registered this weekend as a voter, in order to see a practical program for radical economic transformation to be implemented. We are not running away from that commitment. We are not scared to use the word radical economic transformation, RET. We are not going to run away from all the negative Stratcom propaganda that had been used by the African National Congress and by all the other right-wing political parties in South Africa to attack the principle and the policies of radical economic transformation. Absolutely no ways, because we know unequivocally and clearly that the only way that the people of this country will truly be free, the only way in which the youth of this country will truly be empowered, is through radical economic transformation. So here is what we call you to register for this weekend and to be ready to vote when eventually the election date for the 2024 elections are announced. It is the 10-point plan of the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance to save our country. It reads as follows. First of all, and of course the foundation of our 10-point plan, is the return of the land to the people, expropriation of land without compensation. Secondly, to reverse the privatization of all state-owned enterprises and to prevent the breaking up and privatization of that all-important state-owned enterprise, Eskom. Thirdly, to nationalize the South African Reserve Bank and to make sure that that bank, in the ownership of government and in the service of the people of South Africa, will truly play a developmental role and work for the creation of jobs in South Africa. Fourthly, to implement a national health plan and also to establish a state pharmaceutical company. The failed African National Congress has been making these promises for a very long time, and yet nothing has happened. We commit to make sure that the National Health Plan will be established and that the state pharmaceutical company will be created. Number 5, to end load shedding once and for all and to nationalize all our coal resources. 6, to introduce national service for all young people who've reached the age of 18. Make sure that they will all participate in this national service, which will be legally enforceable, and make sure that through this national service there will be skills training and that they will be able to participate in a public works program that will also assist in providing the young people of South Africa with the necessary skills to make a contribution to the development of our economy and empower them with the ability to find jobs. 7, to introduce a minimum living wage for all South African citizens. 8, to intensify border policing and to deport all illegal, undocumented foreigners. The issue of illegal, undocumented foreigners is a critical one for our country. And the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance is unequivocal in our commitment that we will follow a policy program that will ensure that illegal, undocumented foreigners will be deported to their countries of origin. 9, that harsher sentences have to be introduced for the very serious criminal problem that we are faced in South Africa with. That includes the high levels of corruption, the terrible levels of murder and of gender-based violence, and that in the instances where these serious crimes are committed, that those who are charged and found guilty will not be able to rely on easy bail. In some instances, the reality must be that a life sentence means exactly that, a life sentence. We are also proposing that there must be a referendum about the death penalty, so that we allow you, as the people of South Africa, to speak about the serious problem of crime in our country and whether the reintroduction of the death penalty could provide part of the answer. We want you to give us, as the potential government of the future, a clear instruction. We want to give you a voice to speak on this critically important matter. And then number 10, a drastic reduction on fuel prices with cheaper oil and cheaper other basic minerals and products to be sourced from our BRICS partners. Obviously, these are the highlights of this 10-point plan. The detail we will consider much further, and we will present it also in our election manifesto that will soon be announced. Obviously, also in that elections manifesto, this commitment to save our country will also include a commitment to free, equal, quality education to all the young people of our country, from primary, secondary to tertiary level. This is the 10-point plan that ARETA has presented to the nation of South Africa. And this is the 10-point plan with which we come to you during this National Registration Weekend. When we see that you go there to the various registration points, or when you log in order to check your registration as a voter and to register, we want you to have in your mind's eye this call from the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance, that you do that with the intention to see this plan, this very plan, as we are presenting it to you, implemented. That is what our national voter registration posters, in fact, in reality, say for today. Register to vote. Register to vote for the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance for radical economic transformation. Therefore, for the implementation of this 10-point plan. We promise that we will roll it out in a practical way with clear time frames. We have got no intention to be the politicians of the past who make empty promises without any consequence, without any results. So once you've registered, also look out for our elections manifesto, which will be built, which will be based on this 10-point plan. It will not be a big encyclopedia. It will not be verbose. It will not have a lot of fluff. It will be basic, simple, and clear. But the very important part of what will be added to this 10-point plan in the elections manifesto will be a clear time frame on how these policies can be implemented. So with that unequivocal promise, I am, as the President of the African Radical Economic Transformation, on the behalf of the leadership of ARETA, calling on all the members and all the supporters of ARETA, and in fact on all South Africans, to make a real effort to go out this weekend. If you are not yet registered as a voter, register. If you are registered, double check if you are registered. Make sure that there are no administrative mistakes or hitches. Make sure that you will be able to vote in the 2024 elections, and that you will be able to vote for ARETA, for radical economic transformation. A luta continua.